Xiao finally doesn't have to hide her feelings for Jing and is enjoying this freedom, but it cannot last long. As Jing's grandmother is very sick, Xiao decides to try and help her prolong her life and ease her pain. Will it help her change the grandmadam's mind about Jing's engagement? Or will it set some other events in motion? Events that will set the earth asunder for both Jing and Xiao. Meanwhile, the political landscape is becoming more and more dangerous around Xuan, but he is gathering his allies in an attempt to get ready for anything. Even after he's set up, he can still get out unscathed. But how long till his luck runs out? And what about Qianliu? His last time seeing Xiao was when he shouted at her for mentioning Hongjiang without saying that Hongjiang is the best man in the whole world. What will happen when they see each other again? Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dirain and today we continue diving into the drama and novel Lost You Forever, comparing the two versions of the story. This time we will focus on episode 35. If you missed previous parts, I highly recommend checking them out before you continue this video. And if you don't want to miss my next videos, subscribe! Xuan, Fenlong, and Jin discuss the politics. Li Rongjie also comes and pledges his loyalty to Xuan. It happens in both the novel and the drama. In the drama, though, Xiao is the one telling Xinyu to go for a walk with her, not to disturb the man. In the novel, it's the other way around. That's why Xiao asks Xinyu why she also isn't there for the politics discussion, as she was usually always present. And Xinyu says that Fenlong wants her to stay away from politics now and lead a happy life. If you remember, after Xiao was assassinated, it was Fenlong in the novel who insisted Xinyu has to be there for the interrogation of Mu Fei to understand the full picture. But it was probably his conversation with Xuan that made him change his mind. Xuan said that using his sister in his political game has drawn his enemies to her, and Fenlong must have thought about the times when Xinyu and their mother were hostages of the Yellow Emperor. It shows how much he cares about her, and the drama erased this moment for some reason. Xiao is preparing to visit her father in Haoling, while Jin has to go back to Qinqiu because the grandmadam's health is declining even more by the day. Hearing that, Xiao promises to look for a cure in Haoling. In the novel, we read that she initially didn't want to get involved because in the novel's version, the grandmadam's illness was connected to the bug planted inside her. And if someone could plant such a bug, they must have known a great deal about this magic, unlike Xiao. She thought that her knowledge wouldn't be any greater and she would be of no help. But then again, it was Jin's grandmother who raised him, so Xiao felt she needed to help. In the novel, Jin takes Xiao to see the grandmadam immediately. She never talks about going to Haoling first. They arrive, and this is the moment Ying and Ho realize Xiao is the woman Jin loves. Ho probably thinks that she came to talk about engagement cancellation, so he insists that the princess has to leave because the grandmadam doesn't feel well. To his shock, Xiao replies she knows the magic connected to the bugs and wants to help. But despite her goodwill, the grandmadam also didn't wish to see her because she knew Xiao was the person Jin wanted to marry, instead of Ying, whom the grandmadam trained herself. But after some time and some pleading from Jin, the grandmadam agrees to see the princess. Xiao insisted that both Ho and Ying have to be present when she treats the grandmadam, so that everyone can see that she's really helping and nobody will think anything else. In the hall, apart from the Tushan family and Ying, there was also Semi-R, an old slave from Jiuli tribe saved by the grandmadam a long time ago. Semi-R knew the so-called voodoo magic, and she was the one who planted that bug into the grandmadam. So the grandmadam skeptically told Xiao that her own healer was no less than any of the Xiyan and Haoling doctors, not to mention the self-taught Xiao. I will not retell the whole scene from the novel, but after Xiao used some of her knowledge gained from her mother and the medicinal manuals she was forced to learn as a child, Xiao was able to gain Semi-R's respect. And so everyone else now also was convinced that she really knew the voodoo magic and could help. Xiao used Semi-R's blood to make some pills and also gave advice as how to tame the moth planted inside of the Grand Madam. Eventually, the medicine worked and the Grand Madam was able to endure the pain a lot better. Because of that, it seemed like she has also softened towards Xiao, allowing Xiao to call her grandmother just like everybody else. But in a conversation with Jing, the Grand Madam reveals that if it wasn't the daughter of the Grand Emperor and the granddaughter of the Yellow Emperor, she could have let it be. But Xiao is a big political figure. Staying out of politics was one of the rules of the Tushan clan. So now, even if Ying would agree to cancel the engagement, the Grand Madam would still never agree for Jing and Xiao to marry. And since Jing refuses to give up, we see that grandmother started planning something. Also, when Xiao was making pills, Jing came to her and asked if she was tired. She just casually answered that it was not so different from creating poisons for Xianliu. And Jing was stunned to know she was still doing that. He also started talking about that night near the gambling den and said he felt that Bei was Xianliu. But Xiao cut the conversation. So in the novel, unlike the drama, Jing was not sure about Bei's identity yet. If you remember, the drama shows us Jing knowing Bei is Xianliu in one of the previous episodes. Xiao stayed in Qinqiu for a while, and we read that she also practiced her archery there. Unlike in the drama, where we see her with a bow only when it's some kind of an important scene, or the bow is used to show that Xiao is frustrated or angry or something like that. It really seems like she doesn't train if her training or shooting is not connected to something or someone. And I find it frustrating because archery was a part of her identity in the novel. After training one day, Xiao witnessed an interesting scene. As she was approaching the Tushan Manor, she saw Jing and Ying at the bottom of the mountain. The novel states that after being fed so much of Xianliu's essential blood, Xiao's body has changed, and one of the changes was much better vision. Did you ever see or hear any mention of that in the drama? Nope. But anyway, Jing wanted to bid farewell to Ying when the woman suddenly hugged him. He kind of tried to push her away, but was still being a gentleman, so they were just standing there for some time, entangled in an embrace. We get a somewhat similar scene in the drama, although without Xiao seeing it, and also with some changes. We'll talk about it in a bit. The drama then shows us more of Hou and Ying. And in this scene, they discuss their new discovery. Jing is in love with Xiao, so of course he won't marry Ying. Remember, in the drama, Xiao didn't visit the Grand Madam yet, so their source of news are probably Xiao's uncles. In the scene, it seems like Hou is looking down upon his quote-unquote beloved woman because of the fact she couldn't seduce another man to marry her. Well, so much for a loving couple. In the novel, after leaving Qinqiu, Xiao goes back to Xuan and they have a talk. Xuan knows about that scene with Jing and Ying sharing an embrace, if you can call it that, and the only person who could have told him is Miao Pu, Xiao's maid. Xiao jokingly asks if Can Xuan assigned Miao Pu to help Xiao or to keep tabs on her. So this is the first mention of Xuan spying on Xiao in the novel. Xuan then replies that her other maid, Shanhu, must also be reporting about everything to the Grand Emperor, because she was assigned to help Xiao by her father. And Xuan also states that this is what care means, always informing yourself about the person you love. And speaking of the Grand Emperor, this is the moment when Xiao tells she is finally going to visit him in Haolin. She also explains that between her waking up and up until Jing became the clan leader, they were both forced to act according to the circumstances. Now they both needed to evaluate their lives and realize what they truly need. Although Xuan asks her if she's doing it for herself or thinks that Jing has yet to make his ultimate choice. But still, I find this phrase very telling because it implies that Xiao herself is also not sure that she knows what she wants. Xiao then adds that she and Xuan are the same. They will not fight for anything in terms of romance, even if they want it. Because they both believe it is a mistake to fight for love and they will both just wait for their chosen one to choose them. It is yet another perfect phrase that may shine a little bit more light on why Xiao never actively made steps toward Xiang. She was waiting for him to make the first move and confess his feelings. But Xiang was also waiting for her to make the clear choice, and so they both waited. Jin was much bolder in that regard because he was just clingy and refused to let her go, no matter what his love would put her through. Xiao arrives at Wushan Mountain in both the drama and the novel, but in the drama she meets her father and sister, whereas in the novel Anian is not mentioned yet. One time, the Grand Emperor visited Xiao as she was practicing archery, and there's a scene I want to highlight. Xiao took her ape mirror to tidy herself up, and after she did, the Grand Emperor took this mirror from her and looked at the recorded image of Xiang again. He asked Xiao if it was 9 lives Xiang and if he was the one who saved her life this time. As she saw his face in her mirror again, Xiao remembered about Xiang telling her to erase these memories. After she woke up, she has completely forgotten about that, and so the recordings were still there. The Grand Emperor told Xiao that he would rather exterminate the entire Fanfeng family to snatch Jin for her and be forever condemned for it than see Xiao be connected to Xiang. He also reminded her that Xiang is on the opposite side from Xuan, and Xiao is Xuan's sister, so she doesn't really have a choice in this situation. We read that he also thinks to himself that he has already witnessed one tragedy similar to this and doesn't want to see another one. Of course, he means Xiao's parents being separated because of the war and their suffering, stuck in between loyalty to their people and love for each other. Xiao tells the Grand Emperor not to think too much about this because the relationship with Xiang is just transaction-based. But as soon as the Grand Emperor leaves, Xiao looks at the mirror and her smile gradually disappears. We see her being torn because of this conversation. She feels connected to Xiang, and not just because his blood is now in her veins or because he used his manly charm on her. But whatever she feels, she knows that her family will not agree to it and that Xiang also can't give up Hongjian's army. So, Jin is not the only one who has a difficult situation here, just so we all understand. Meanwhile, in the drama, Xuan's investigation has brought him somewhere unexpected. Xiao tells him about a village where Chichen used to live with his wife, who just so happened to be called Xiling Witch by the villagers. To confirm his suspicion, Xuan writes a letter to one of the Xian generals. Then we see a spy interfere with the reconstruction of the palace entrusted to Xuan. And after that, Xinyu comes to visit Xuan. She sees him as the future emperor and herself as his future wife, but the vision fades away and she falls silent. She once again tells him that she will be by his side, and we see him squeezing a smile out of himself. Xinyu is determined to give Xuan a self-written copy of some scrolls about the emperors of Chenrong and their rule to help him understand the Central Plains better and to be a better ruler one day. She shows not just her ambition to become the empress, but also her understanding of Xuan's ambition. But she's still as arrogant as she always is, saying that there are things that only she can offer as a gift to Xuan. Jin is back in Jinqiu in the drama, and we see that scene with Ying I mentioned earlier. Here, Jin is shown much colder toward Ying and also harsher. He even cuts off his sleeve that Ying is holding on to and sort of tells her to back off. I find it ridiculous that the drama tries this hard to make Jin more decisive here. But of course, he has to be more proactive to be the male lead, so here we are. In the drama, Ying says that she will agree to the cancellation for the sake of Jin and Xiao. But can we really believe her at this point? So, after she tells him she agrees to cancel the engagement, Jing can't wait to tell his grandmother. As the happiest news of his life is brought to the grandmadam, we understand what Ying's initial plan was. She pretended to try to unalive herself to make Jing feel guilty and also to make the grandmadam scold him for being so negligent. And well, she achieved both of her goals. Now Jing has to stay and help Ying recover. Like a reasonable man, he stays in the other room. And later that night, the grandmadam comes by and brings Jing some soup. Of course, he doesn't think twice and drinks the soup. Meanwhile, Xiao has locked herself up to study medicinal scrolls and find the cure for Jing's grandmother. In the drama. In the novel, she didn't do that. She practiced her archery in the morning, concocted poisons in the afternoon, and studied medical scrolls from time to time. But the drama needs to show her burning herself down for Jing's grandmother. Her father comes to see her, and we get a small sweet scene of them talking. Although, there's no mention of Xiang or the ape mirror, like it was in the novel. The Grand Emperor in both the novel and the drama invites a famous master to forge a bow for Xiao. The scene exists in both the drama and the novel, but it seems a bit strange in the drama. You see, in the novel, Xiao practices her archery in Haoling, but in the drama, this is not even mentioned anywhere. She just looks for the way to cure Jing's grandmother all day, as it seems. So, a sudden visit from the smith seems out of place here. Maybe it is one of those sequences that used to have more scenes in them, but these extra scenes were cut in the post-production. In any case, we got another strange scene that seems disconnected from the rest of the previous plot. The smith in the drama gives Xiao the bow on their first appointment because it just so happens that she has a perfect weapon for her that someone ordered, gathered incredibly rare materials for, and then just said he can't use it and doesn't want it anymore. Of course, the viewers recognize this quote-unquote someone in an instant. Xiang in his mask and with his typical behavior. In the novel, though, the smith leaves and then comes back after a month with a bow that was being forged for the last 35 years. Now let's stop here for a moment. Do you remember the first time we have seen Xiang come to the smith in the drama? It was exactly when Xuan came back to Qinshui town to take Wen Xiaoliu to the Grand Emperor in episode 13. So it was definitely much more than 35 years ago in the drama. Why did the drama change it though? As I look back at the episode 13, I may suggest that it was an attempt to explain why Xiang couldn't come and save Xiao from Xuan in time. But it honestly just doesn't make any sense to me. Xiang is working for the rebel army, so of course he would have had a lot to do. But we have seen multiple times that the drama has a lot of lazy writing and they probably didn't want to film any fighting scenes or something like that, so it was decided to paste the ordering of the bow in there. Or they wanted to tell us that Xiang is a prophet who knew that Xiao would want to master archery. Or he was planning to teach her archery at that time already, but in any case it still doesn't make sense for me, however you put it. If the bow was ordered 35 years ago, like it was in the novel, it means that it was shortly after Xiao's assassination attempt. So, Xiang wanted to find a way for her to always be able to protect herself. He knew she always had some poisons with her, but only poison wasn't enough in most cases. Whereas having a bow that can appear at your will is quite handy for someone like Xiao with low spiritual power. In the novel, the smith also directly says that if she didn't know that the bow was ordered by another person, she would have thought it was ordered specially for Xiao, because of how good it fits all her needs. But there was one problem. The bow needed to recognize its owner, and there was a ritual for it. It just so happens that this bow was to be tamed using the blood of a nine-headed demon. And it just so happens that the only known nine-headed demon is called 9 Lives Xiang. A pure coincidence, I'm telling you. Xiao, of course, gets the bow, knowing it won't be a problem for her to get that final ingredient. So let's talk about the ritual itself in the novel. First, the future owner had to drink the blood of the nine-headed demon. Drink the blood, not whatever we saw in the drama. And then the owner had to feed their blood to the bow. And it had to be done at night with a full moon, of course. In the novel, Xiao didn't need to go find Xianliu for that. Remember, she was drinking Xianliu's blood for almost 4 decades, and surely had enough of it in her system. So she just went to meet the smith 2 days after she brought her the bow, and they performed the recognizing ritual. In the novel, the bow was silver, without any markings and definitely without any gemstones on it. The ritual was a bit bloody because the bow was slicing Xiao's arm to sample her blood and to understand what right she actually has to try and tame it. If she didn't have Xianliu's blood in her system, the bow would kill her. But, well, she had enough for 100 of such bows, I guess. The weapon entered her arm as it did in the drama, but Xiao couldn't shoot more than 3 arrows a day, because no matter what, her powers were still low. And yet, it was better than nothing. As I said, the ritual was bloody, and I'm not sure if it was too bloody for the drama, because we get a lot of scenes with people cutting their fingers and feeding someone their blood. We also get scenes where people vomit blood in all directions, etc. So, well, it probably isn't the main reason for this change, and I genuinely have no idea why it was changed, to be honest. Because they didn't need to hide that Xiao has Xianliu's blood in her veins. We get that from the drama anyway. If you have ideas why they didn't show us the novel's version of the ritual, write it in the comments. In the drama, we get to the day of the ceremony, where the renovated palace has to be blessed. The nobles praise Xuan for doing a good job. He starts the ceremony, but the palace crumbles in front of everyone. Naturally, next thing we see are the 2 uncles reporting the matter in the worst possible colors, assuring the Yellow Emperor that Xuan is still a useless slacker. But then they suggest sending a commissar to investigate and bring the truth to light, so that they may clear Xuan's name. We all know it's not what they intend to do, and the Yellow Emperor knows it as well, but still allows it to happen. Then we get a scene with the Grand Emperor, from which we learn why exactly the Yellow Emperor did this, and also get an explanation what this whole situation may mean for Xuan if he fails to outsmart the enemies this time. Xuan talks to Jing and learns about the special ants that were eating up on his wooden columns, which caused the collapse. But the suspect couldn't tell Xuan if someone brought the ants there on purpose. The guy conveniently unalived himself. Xuan understands that this could be the end of him, and so does Xinyue. She rips the letter she wrote to Xuan and tells her maid to conceal the fact that she was ever supposed to send him any gifts. Xiao is still in Haoling, preparing some medicine to take with her to Chenrong Mountain, when concerned Anyan tells the bad news. Canquan is in big trouble this time, so they need to act quickly. In the novel, there is still no sign of trouble at this point, and they just want to go visit Xuan together. Sisters in both versions discuss Anyan's feelings and the path that Xuan chose to take. Xiao shows her support and explains that she has come to know the value of life and peace. But Anyan is determined to be with Xuan no matter what he does, and she asks Xiao for help. It's been a rough week for Xuan in the drama, but now it's about to get even more exciting, as he gets an answer from the Xian general about Xilin Heng and Chichan. The letter failed to lighten up the mood, so Canquan lights it on fire and lets it burn down to ashes just like his hope did. What he read in that letter showed him that he has to stay in the Central Plains no matter what. In the gambling den, Fenlong and Li Rongjie have found drunk Jing. This is something new. Xuan gently wakes him up with some refreshments, but before this party can really get started, we cut to the inspection. Despite all the sweet talking, everyone involved and everyone watching understand that the investigation is just a facade to cover up an attempt to get rid of Xuan for good. After the friendly enemies leave, we learn that Jing made the fake account books for Xuan. But Xuan knows that his secrets are not so well hidden and his grandfather will uncover everything in no time if he wishes to do so. After Xiao and Anyan arrive, Xiao doesn't waste a single moment in the drama and starts preparing to fight for Xuan's and her own future. She sends a letter to her father, who has his own thoughts about the matter and as an experienced political player knows when to act and when to wait. In the novel, Xiao and Xuan talk and he tells her that Jing is acting weird, bathing and changing clothes more often than usually. Xiao remembered that he changed his clothes before coming to meet Xiao on the day Ying hung herself on him for an embrace, but she doesn't really think much about it yet. So he wasn't drinking in the gambling den in the novel. Xiao and Xuan talk some more, but we'll get to their conversation in the next episode. In the drama, Xiao now meets Bei to ask for his blood. It's their first meeting after he lashed out on her, but they both act like nothing happened. First, she presents him her newest poisons, created from the finest ingredients. Of course, Bei knows that she wants something in exchange, and she does indeed. Xiao brings out her new bow, and we see Bei's face change for a few short moments. He recognizes the bow, and we see it stirs something inside him. Of course, Xiao tells him she needs 3 drops of his blood to tame the bow, and he agrees to give them in an interesting way. He creates a bird that she has to shoot down. I find it frustrating that he didn't use his demon claws in this scene. Like, was the makeup department lazy, or did the director decide it isn't worth it? When Xiao shoots the bird, it doesn't just fly inside the bow, it pecks Xiao's fingers, mixing their blood before it is sucked into the bow. Although I still don't understand why it had to do that. Doesn't Xiao already have Xianliu's blood inside her veins? It makes no sense. When the bow recognizes Xiao as its master, Bei once again reacts sadly, but we can see that he is glad that she got the bow he ordered for her, and now she has a perfect weapon for herself. He advises her to be more vicious if she wants to kill people, and of course she replies that she will use poison. He tells her that she has graduated, and we see Xiao a bit lost and confused. She is sad that their lessons are over, but Bei as usual tries to make it seem like a transaction between them, although we all know it wasn't. I find it ironic that Bei asks whether Xiao wanted to take advantage of him. Considering everything that happened between them in the whole novel and even the drama, that is exactly what we can say about their relationship. But this is a conversation for the final video in this series. The scene of their parting is very good, I like it a lot. It has longing from both of them, a bit of a struggle and uncertainty, as well as hidden feelings. I love that we see Xiao also hesitate, and she looks like she's about to call out for him, but she just watches him go and eventually turns around to also leave. As she does, Bei slows down and almost turns around to her, but he doesn't. In the end, none of them says anything and they part ways. And we have come to the end of this video. Thank you for watching till the end, leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. What did you think about these differences between the drama and the novel? Which version do you like more so far, and why? Let me know in the comments. Stay healthy, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and find happiness in every moment of your lives. See ya in the next video.